Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive with us.
Excited to be here.
Today we're going to be delving into the world of Icelandic magic.
Ooh!
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
I like it already.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at this book called the Galdrabók.
Oh, okay.
And for this one, we have two sources.
Okay.
So first off, we have Stephen Flowers' book, Texto Pagado.
Right.
And this is like kind of the more academic look at the Galdrabók. But then we also have this YouTube video from Channel Legendarium.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like a nice balance.
Yeah.
So we can kind of see like the more scholarly perspective, but then also how this stuff is being interpreted like in a more modern context.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So get ready for some runes,
Oh, yeah.
some staves,
Yes.
and of course some spells.
Of course, gotta have the spells.
But what I think is really cool about this is that it's not just about like the magic itself.
Right.
It's really a way for us to kind of look at Icelandic history,
Yeah.
beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
daily life.
Right.
Like all of that is reflected in these practices.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how much magic was just like a normal part of life for them, you know?
Okay.
It wasn't something like hidden or secretive.
Yeah.
It was just intertwined with everything.
So like, let's just imagine we're in Iceland,
Right.
beautiful landscapes.
Uh-huh.
You know, maybe we've just read some epic sagas.
Yes.
What else is going on?
Well, you have to remember that Icelandic magic is really rooted in those like older traditions.
Okay.
So Norse and Germanic traditions.
Yeah, okay.
Those are kind of like the foundation. And they drew a lot of power from things like runes.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had their own unique incantations that they called galdralag.
Wow.
And so the Galdrabók, it really preserves this whole system for us.
Now, this was after Iceland had converted to Christianity.
Right.
Did the old ways just disappear?
Not at all. It's really interesting because it wasn't like a clean break. You know,
Yeah.
you had this like merging of the old and the new.
Okay.
This blending of pagan and Christian elements in their magic.
Really?
Yeah. And the YouTube video, they talk about this priest,
Okay.
Galdralofter.
Galdralofter.
This guy was known for both practicing black magic
What?
and being like a serious scholar of the Gospels.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah. Bit of a contradiction, right?
That's more than a bit of a contradiction. Like, how do you reconcile those two things?
It's wild, right? Like they were really trying to make it all work together somehow.
So was that reflected in the book itself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
When you look at the spells in the Galdrabók,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see some that call on God or saints
Okay.
right alongside like figures from Norse mythology.
So they're like hedging their bets a little bit.
Yeah, basically. Appealing to all the powers that be just to be safe.
I mean, hey, if you can do magic,
Right. Why not cover all your races?
might as well go all out.
Exactly.
So what kinds of things are actually in this book?
Well, it's a collection of about 47 spells.
Okay, 47 spells.
Yeah, and they cover all sorts of things.
Okay, like what?
Well, you've got your standard protection spells,
Okay,
healing spells,
makes sense.
love spells,
Ooh,
curses,
whoa.
even spells for gaining wisdom.
Really?
Yeah, so it's quite diverse.
So it's not just like a list of spells.
No.
Is there more to it?
It's more like a magical recipe book.
Ooh, I like that.
It's got instructions,
Okay.
symbols, different components you need to gather.
This is reminding me of the
Yeah.
YouTube video mentioned Galdrashiftafir.
Yes, those are key.
What are those again?
They're like magical staves or symbols,
Okay.
and they're a huge part of Icelandic magic.
Okay.
Some of them look kind of like runes,
Huh.
but others seem unique to Iceland.
Wow, so it's like holding a piece of history
Right.
and magic all at once.
It really makes you wonder about all the secrets hidden in those pages.
No. All right, so let's get to the good stuff.
The spells.
The spells.
Let's do it.
That's what we're all here for, right?
But before we jump in, I do want to mention that translating Old Icelandic is no easy feat,
I bet.
especially with all the mixed vocabulary they used.
Okay.
Flowers really had to work hard to decipher it all.
Kudos to him.
Yeah, he really went above and beyond in Texto Pagado to make sure we have an accurate understanding of these spells.
So what are some of the standouts? Like, what are the most intriguing spells?
Well, one category that always jumps out is protection and healing spells.
So?
They really highlight how harsh life was back then in medieval Iceland.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
You're talking about spells to ward off harm,
Okay.
illness, curses.
Wow, so they were really using magic to try and, like, gain some control over their world.
It makes sense, right? When you're facing so much uncertainty,
Definitely.
you look for ways to protect yourself.
Totally. And you know what's funny is, I think we still do that today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just maybe not in the same ways.
Right. It's not like we're casting spells to ward off Vikings.
Right, exactly.
But that desire for protection, that need to feel safe, it's still there.
Totally like knocking on wood.
Exactly.
Or carrying a lucky charm.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it's that same instinct, just kind of adapted for the modern world.
I love that.
Okay, but you know what everyone really wants to know about?
What's that?
The love spells.
Ah, yes, the love spells.
Channel Legendarium mentions spells to make someone fall for you.
Oh, yeah, those are always popular.
Have you ever been tempted to try one? I'll plead the fifth on that one.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But seriously, those love spells, they can tell us a lot about Icelandic views on love and loyalty.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a window into their social dynamics and values.
And speaking of social dynamics,
Okay.
we can't forget about the fart runes.
Oh my God. Yes.
Like, that has to be the most bizarre and hilarious spell in the book.
It's amazing.
Right. Like, what were they thinking?
I know, but even those silly spells, they tell us something
Okay, what?
about how people dealt with conflict or social situations. Maybe it was their version of a prank, you know?
Or a way to express disapproval.
Interesting.
It's a reminder that even magic had a sense of humor.
Well, that's good to know.
Right.
Sometimes a rather crude one.
Okay, so we've mentioned runes a few times.
Yeah.
Are those just an alphabet, or is there something more to them?
Oh, they were much more than just letters to the Norse.
Okay.
Each rune held deep magical significance.
Wow.
They were believed to have their own unique powers and meanings.
So how do they connect to the Galdrabók? Like, are the staves just fancy runes?
Some staves do resemble runes,
Okay.
but many are completely unique to Icelandic practices.
Interesting.
And in Texto Pagado, Flowers dives into the symbolism of these staves,
Okay.
and he connects them to Norse cosmology.
Like what kind of things?
Oh, you know, Yggdrasil, the 9 worlds references to the Norse gods.
Wow. So there's like a whole deeper level of meaning embedded in these symbols.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating.
It's like a secret code just waiting to be cracked.
It really is.
Okay, so I gotta ask.
Sure.
How did people actually use these spells? All right, so you're not just gonna like wave a wand.
Okay, good to know.
It's a bit more involved than that.
Yeah.
In Texto Pagado, Flowers talks about this concept of galdralag.
Galdralag.
Yeah, it's the idea that spoken charms, actions, and those potent symbols all work together
Okay.
to create magical effects.
So it's like a recipe.
Yes.
You need the right ingredients.
Yes.
And the right process.
To get the desired outcome.
And I remember Channel Legendarium mentioning some interesting ingredients.
Oh, yeah. What were those?
Like raven blood special inks.
Oh, wow.
That's hardcore.
Right. Talk about taking it to the next level.
So it wasn't just about the words.
Yeah.
It was about like the whole ritual, the experience.
Exactly. The choice of materials was really important.
Okay.
They weren't just random.
Okay.
They were thought to amplify the intention behind the spell.
So they were like tapping into the power of nature.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so this book is incredibly old.
Right. It is.
Is it just a historical curiosity?
That's a good question.
Or does it have relevance for us today?
Well, the legacy of the Galdrabók is definitely not forgotten.
Okay.
We're actually seeing a resurgence of interest in these kinds of practices.
Right.
Both sources mentioned a renewed interest in Norse paganism, runic magic,
Okay.
even modern occult practices that draw inspiration from these older traditions.
So the magic of the Galdrabók is still alive and well,
Absolutely.
even in the 21st century.
It might not be exactly the same as it was back then,
Yeah.
but that core fascination with magic, that desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves, it's still very much alive.
And Channel Legendarium brings up a really interesting point
What's that?
about the Age of Fire in Iceland.
Oh, yeah.
It was a time of witch hunts and accusations of black magic.
Right. A very dark period.
It makes you think about how fear and fascination with magic
Yeah,
often go hand in hand.
they do.
It's like this primal urge to understand and control the forces around us,
Definitely.
whether it's through science, religion, or magic.
Right. We're always searching for ways to make sense of the world.
And to try and exert some influence over our lives.
Exactly. It's a very human thing.
It's like a part of our nature
I agree.
that transcends time and culture.
Well said.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
We've explored the historical context of Icelandic magic.
Uh-huh.
We've dipped our toes into the fascinating contents of the Galdrabók.
Yes.
And we've even touched on its lasting legacy.
It's amazing how much there is to unpack.
I know, right? But there's still so much more to uncover.
There is.
So hold on tight, because in part 2 of our deep dive,
Yes.
we're going to delve even deeper into the fascinating world of the Galdrabók.
I'm excited.
We'll unpack more captivating spells,
Can't wait.
explore the power of language and ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and tackle the question of its relevance in our modern world.
Ooh, that's a big one.
So stay tuned, and we'll be back soon for the next chapter of our Icelandic adventure.
See you then.
Welcome back, everyone.
Glad to be back.
I'm still thinking about all this stuff about Icelandic magic.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
This Galdrabók, it's like a time capsule
Yeah,
of these ancient beliefs and practices.
for sure.
But it's also making me think about
Okay.
how we still use language and rituals today.
Hmm.
You know, even if it's not like full-on magic,
Right.
to try and shape our realities.
It's interesting how those ideas connect, isn't it?
Oh,
It goes back to what Flowers was talking about.
The galdralag thing?
Yeah, galdralag, exactly.
So like the spoken charms,
Mhm.
the actions,
Right.
all working together.
Yeah, to create these magical effects.
It wasn't just about the words themselves.
Right.
It was about the intention behind them.
Like the energy you put into it.
Exactly.
So the words were almost like a conduit
Hmm.
to channel something bigger.
I like that.
And then the rituals, the
Yeah.
actions, the symbols,
Yeah.
it was like they were all designed to kind of amplify that energy.
Focus it towards a specific goal.
Exactly. And the Galdrabók is full of examples of that.
Like what?
Well, think about the ingredients they used.
Okay.
Raven blood,
Yeah.
special inks,
Yeah.
even the types of wood they would carve runes on.
Okay.
All of those choices were deliberate.
They weren't just random.
No, they each had a symbolic meaning,
Okay.
and they believed that those things could actually enhance the spell's power.
So it's like a recipe.
Yes, a magical recipe.
But instead of making a cake,
You're trying to shape reality.
right, using words, actions, and symbols,
And just like with a good recipe.
you got to have the right ingredients
Yes.
and follow the steps carefully.
Exactly.
There's a precision to it.
There was definitely a sense of intentionality within Icelandic magic.
So it wasn't just like wishing for something to happen
No, it was about actively working with the forces of the universe.
to try and bring about a specific result.
Precisely.
But the big question is,
What's that?
did it actually work?
You mean like, did the spells actually do what they were supposed to do?
Yeah, was it all just superstition, or was there something more to it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's one we can't really answer for sure.
I guess not.
But what we can say
Okay.
is that people back then,
Uh-huh.
they really believed in the power of magic.
Yeah.
It was such a huge part of their lives.
Right.
It influenced everything.
Their decisions,
Yeah.
their relationships.
Mhm.
So even if we can't prove it scientifically,
Right?
it's clear that magic had a profound impact on their lives.
Absolutely.
It was a source of hope, a
Uh-huh.
way to protect themselves,
Yeah.
and even a way to cope with the challenges of their world.
It was a different way of experiencing and understanding reality.
And you know what it makes me think?
What's that?
That desire to understand and control the forces around us,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's seen or unseen,
Right.
it's pretty universal.
It is a part of human nature.
Totally.
Yeah.
So whether it's through science,
Religion.
Magic.
We're always searching for those answers.
right, those ways to make sense of the world.
And to try and shape it according to our needs.
You know what I find fascinating?
What?
Is all the stuff about Norse cosmology and mythology.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
So for anyone who's not familiar with that, can you give us a quick rundown?
Sure. So Norse cosmology is basically this complex system of beliefs
Okay.
that's centered around this giant ash tree called Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
Yeah, and it's said to connect 9 different worlds.
9 worlds.
Yeah, and each world is inhabited by different beings.
Like,
Gods, giants, elves, dwarves, all sorts of creatures.
it's like their own version of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, but way more ancient.
So how did that connect to their magical practices?
Well, those beliefs really shaped how they saw the world
Uh-huh.
and their place within it.
Right, so it wasn't just like fantastical story.
No, these myths were deeply intertwined with their understanding of the cosmos,
Wow.
the forces at play in the universe.
And even the nature of reality itself.
Exactly.
You know, when we were talking about ingredients earlier,
Mm-hmm.
it reminded me of this time when I was trying to make natural dyes.
Oh, wow.
Using plants from my garden,
Cool.
I found this old recipe.
Yeah.
And let's just say it didn't go so well.
Oh, no. What happened?
My kitchen looked like a scene from a horror movie.
Oh, dear.
But it's funny how we're still drawn to those kinds of things.
Right. Even in a modern context.
Yeah, like that connection to nature.
Yeah.
That urge to try things out for ourselves.
It's part of what makes us human.
Absolutely. And it's not just about dyes or gardening.
Right?
It's also about things like herbal remedies or even dabbling in more mystical traditions.
It seems like that urge to explore and experiment.
Yeah,
It's a constant throughout history.
for sure.
Now, if we circle back to the Galdrabók,
Okay.
it's important to remember that not all the spells
Yeah.
were about like dramatic displays of power
Okay.
or shaping external reality.
So what were they about?
Some of them focused on more subtle things,
Like what?
like enhancing wisdom
Oh, interesting.
or gaining knowledge.
So it's kind of like self-help, but for the medieval era?
Yeah, exactly. It's like 10 staves to unlock inner wisdom.
I love that.
Right.
But you know what I'm curious about?
What's that?
The historical context surrounding the Galdrabók.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the Age of Fire earlier.
Right, the Icelandic witch hunts.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, so this was a pretty dark period in Icelandic history.
Okay.
From roughly the mid-16th century to the mid-17th century,
Okay.
there was a surge in accusations of witchcraft and sorcery.
Wow.
And it was often fueled by fear, superstition, and religious fervor.
So it was like this time when magic and religion and social control
Yeah,
were all kind of mixed up together.
exactly. The lines became very blurred.
And so possessing a book like the Galdrabók,
Oh, yeah,
that could have been pretty risky back then.
absolutely.
Right? I mean, it's full of spells and symbols and stuff.
It could have easily been seen as evidence of witchcraft.
And you know the witch hunts.
Yeah.
They were often driven by a desire to eliminate anything.
That was perceived as a threat to the established order.
So anything associated with magic?
Especially practices that blended pagan and Christian elements.
Like in the Galdrabók.
Exactly, that could easily make someone a target.
It's a reminder that fascination with magic
Mm-hmm.
often comes with a fear of its power.
Right, that fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and that fear can manifest in some pretty awful ways.
Well, unfortunately, history is full of examples of that.
But the Galdrabók itself,
Yeah.
it's not a testament to evil or darkness.
No?
It's really just a reflection of a belief system
Yeah.
that was trying to understand and interact with the forces of the world.
Both seen and unseen.
You've given us a lot to think about.
I hope so.
The Galdrabók, it's not just a spell book.
Yeah.
It's a window into a different time,
Mm-hmm.
a different way of thinking.
And a testament to our enduring fascination with the mysteries of the universe.
For sure.
And it reminds us that there's always more to discover.
Right.
More layers to unravel.
And that sometimes
The most fascinating journeys are the ones that take us beyond the familiar.
into the realm of the unknown.
Exactly.
So are you ready to continue our journey
Oh, absolutely.
on the final part of our deep dive?
I can't wait.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
but don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back soon for the final part of our Galdrabók deep dive,
Can't wait to wrap things up
where we'll explore the relevance of all this.
in our modern world.
Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Galdrabók.
It's been quite a journey.
I know, right? We've talked about the spells, the symbolism, the rituals, the historical context,
Uh-huh.
but now I want to kind of zoom out
Okay.
and think about the bigger picture.
I like it.
What can this book tell us about, like, our fascination with magic?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Both back then
Yeah.
and even now.
I think it's really interesting how this centuries-old book still has this power, you know?
Yeah.
It speaks to something deep within us,
Totally.
this yearning to understand the world,
Mhm.
to have some control over the forces that shape our lives.
It's like we're always searching for those answers.
Right, and we see that in everything.
Yeah.
Like science and technology, religion, spirituality.
Even magic.
Exactly.
Not just about wanting to, like, wave a wand and make things happen.
No.
It's about believing that there's more to reality
Yeah.
than what we can see and touch.
Like there might be these hidden forces at work.
Yeah. Forces we could maybe tap into.
That idea has always captivated humans.
It's like a universal thing, right?
For sure.
And the Galdrabók shows us how people in medieval Iceland,
Yeah.
they were trying to do that.
They were using magic to navigate the challenges of their world.
Right. They wanted
It's
protection
not of love,
in action.
even revenge.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget about those fart runes.
Oh, man, those were something else.
They definitely weren't afraid to have a little fun with magic,
They had a sense of humor about it.
which I appreciate.
Me too.
But you know, Channel Legendarium also pointed out
What's that?
that fear and fascination often go together.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
They were talking about the Age of Fire.
Right, the witch hunts.
And it's like people were both drawn to the power of magic.
But also terrified of it.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
For sure.
And I feel like we still kind of grapple with that today.
Absolutely.
Like, we love magic in stories and movies. And we might even do little superstitious things ourselves.
Right.
But there's still that part of us that's a bit wary.
That fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and the power that we might not be able to control.
It's a healthy fear to have in some ways.
It's like that saying, magic is just science we don't understand yet.
I've heard that one.
I wonder if there's some truth to that.
Maybe.
Or maybe it's something else entirely.
Something beyond our current understanding.
That's the exciting part, right?
Well,
The Galdrabók, it's like, it opens up all these possibilities.
with its blend of Norse mythology and Christian influences.
And those unique Icelandic traditions.
It challenges us to think outside the box.
Yeah, to consider that maybe there's more out there.
Then we realize.
So after all of this,
What do we make of it all?
what's the takeaway from this deep dive into the Galdrabók?
For me, it really highlights that human search for meaning and connection.
Yeah.
We're always trying to make sense of our experiences.
Just to find our place in the universe.
And sometimes that search takes us to some pretty unexpected places.
Like the pages of an ancient spellbook.
Exactly.
Full of secrets and mysteries. And you know, it's also a reminder
Okay.
that stories and traditions have power.
Yes.
They can transcend time.
The Galdrabók, it's not just a collection of smells.
Right.
It's a window into Icelandic culture.
History, beliefs.
And those stories, they still resonate with us today.
I think that's a good place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
We've reached the end of our Galdrabók deep dive.
But hopefully this is just the beginning.
Right. Of your own exploration.
But there's a whole world of magic and folklore out there.
And I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, what resonated with you?
What surprised you?
What questions do you still have?
So keep those magical minds curious, folks.
And remember, there's always more to discover.
Until next time.